As you can see, we're in front of someone's fabulous garden, and that happens to be Alison Collin's. Originally, this was all yard, and she began to decide that she wanted to do something and have some native plants and have plants that were just user-friendly to all of the birds and the bees and have it a pollinator garden. And this is what you're looking at today.
Welcome to my garden, and I'm delighted that it's been noticed, and I'm pleased to share it with anyone who wants to see it. Previous owners had a very lush lawn, and they had impatiens in this area under the tree, packed with impatiens in the summer. When we looked at the water usage, they were using 125 minutes of irrigation every other day, and that seemed unconscionable during a drought. So that was the thing which really started me off doing this. I happened to have seen some programs on the television, a program called Big Dreams, Small Spaces, where they landscape small areas like this, all different ones. And I was sitting there one evening and I thought, I can do that, I can actually do it. And that's what made me decide to rip out the lawn and start on a new venture. This is a wonderful perennial poppy. It's Papava atlanticum, and it blooms most of the summer. Each flower unfortunately only lasts one day, but as you can see, there are lots and lots of buds coming up, and the only downside to this poppy is deadheading, which one has to keep up in order to get a good show for a long period.
Alison, something I wanted to ask you about. I noticed this looks like a grass, but backing up just a little bit, I also want to mention that this was the end of April and going into May, and so I'm assuming you planted some of these knowing perfectly well what should be blooming.
Yes.
And if you
yes.
get many different blooms.
Yes.
Types.
Well, the grass is a godsend really, because there's always structure, and you need to look at structure as well as just the flowers and the flower colour. So here we have a mound of green with the spiky grey behind it, and then going into a slightly less grey foliage in the blue flax beyond that. The thing is about the grasses, though, they don't really provide a lot of support for pollinators, so I have avoided putting too many in.
Right.
I do have a couple.
But like you say, it's such a fabulous contrast.
Vegetables feed our bodies and plants feed our souls, and flowers feed our souls, and we really need flowers for uplifting moments, I think. One of the joys of this has been the number of people that stop by. I had two complete strangers knock on the front door the other day and ask if they could walk round the garden because they were so impressed. So, it's very nice. Other people get a lot of pleasure from it. This is damage on a rose leaf, showing the damage that leafcutter bees make when they are taking leaves in order to build their nests. They put a piece of pollen in the tube, usually in a hole in the wood or in some rock, and then fill the top of it over with the leaf that they've cut. They don't do serious damage. It's nothing to worry about, and you don't have to spray your roses because of that. This is where some of the leaf cutter bees are making their nests, in the holes in the cracks in the stonework. Usually they go for wood, holes in wood, but this year they seem to have really taken a shine to this as their chief nesting spot. This is Verbena Homestead Purple, and I bought it as an order filler to get cheaper postage on an order I was getting. Having never grown verbena before, I really didn't know what to expect and quite thought that it would die during the winter, but far from it. It was the first thing to spring to life and rapidly started flowering.
Alison, I wanted to ask you a little bit more specifically about this garden. And this tall, purple, flowery looking plant is just so happy, and I don't know what it is.
That is Centranthus, commonly called valerian, and it's an old herbal remedy type plant. I wouldn't take it myself, but people have done. It looks nice at the moment, but it does tend to get taller and taller and flop and sprawl. So although you have your moment of glory with it, it's something that you have to place carefully in the garden.
I think it's fascinating to think it was an herbal plant.
Yes, and butterflies love it. They come in droves to feed on that. And it flowers endlessly, because if you cut the top flowers off, you immediately get little branches underneath with more flowers coming out. So it blooms all summer. And in front of it is purple Salvia nemorosa, which is a lower growing salvia, and both of those are very tough plants. They don't need much water. With my irrigation system, I have arranged it so that the loops of irrigation curl around, and then things which need more water are closer to where two loops meet, and the things like the native penstemons that don't like a lot of water go in the gaps where there's no irrigation, because they get enough water from deep down to tide them over. This is a prairie sage, a salvia family. I'm afraid I don't know its full Latin name, but it is a most gorgeous blue colour, and that can be compared to a neighbour here, which is the darker purple, which is Salvia gregii, which is a shrubby sage, and that will get to about 3 or 4 feet in height.
Alison, I'm just surprised at so many different colors of salvia, and this yellow one, I don't know that I've seen it before.
It is very unusual. I don't think I've ever seen another yellow one. I picked it up at a nursery, I think not even in flower, and just on the off chance, and that's what I got. I'm delighted with it, and I have several dark purple and blue flowers near it, so when they're all out together it'll look quite spectacular. This charming little plant is Linaria reticulata. It is an annual. It seems to have done very well here. I just put one plant in to try it out. It's been flowering for a long time, and I understand that once you cut it back it will produce a second crop of flowers. It must be getting close to the end of its first blooming now. When we first moved into the house, the whole area was lawn, and the irrigation was running for 155 minutes every other day. Now we have cut out a lot of the irrigation by having the decomposed granite paths and hard standing, and what area is left that's irrigated gets irrigated for 15 minutes 3 times a week. This plant is amethyst in the snow. It is a centuria, and it's very tough and has quite intelligent really, because it's found its way to follow the dripper line, and the tiny clump I planted last year has now spread quite considerably, as you can see. But it's flowered, one of the earliest things to flower, and it's flowered for a long time, so I'm very pleased with it.
Alison, this is a darling spot. So I can sit here and look at everything, but I'm going to come up and have you share this part of your garden with me. But I have to say, that's wonderful. Alison, so tell me a little bit more. Now here we have a blue-purple flower, and it looks really bee-friendly.
It is indeed. It is one of the best plants for bees and butterflies. It is a catmint, and it's called, Latin name is Nepeta. Usually they are just covered in insects, of all different sorts, wasps, bees, butterflies. But at the moment it's a little cold, and I think with the wind they're just not out yet. Probably in another hour it'll be well used. This is a fairly new garden, just 3 years old, which replaced a very ratty old lawn. And I did not confine myself to purely native plants. I wanted it to be packed with flowers the whole year through, providing food for all sorts of pollinators, bees, wasps, hummingbirds, and anything else that enjoys living here. This is the California poppy, Escultia, and it must be one of the most saturated orange colours you can find in nature, I think. Although it is not actually native to the lower Owens Valley, it does grow in the more southerly areas.